Good morning, Nye River students and parents. So this is a video to help you prepare for Tuesday's test. So the 22nd, we'll have a comprehensive reconstruction test. And to start things off, there's a couple questions about the regions, just to go back and test whether or not you're retaining the information that we do. So we wanted to do a quick review of these regions as you see them on your screen right here. So go ahead, Mr. Webb.
Hello, Naireba. And we already gave a study guide. We've got we've had a couple activities, so we should be in real good shape for this test. But this video will help you again be in be prepared to get 100%.
Yeah.
So when you look at the regions, there's 7 regions. One area we want to look at is where textiles were manufactured. Remember, textiles is fabric. So up in the northeast. So don't forget that.
Yeah.
Remember your compass rose. Another region that's important to us is the state that has the greatest population, California. And you'll notice Oregon and Washington, they all border
the Pacific Ocean. So that's the Pacific region.
Yeah. And then you've got a couple of states that are not connected to the continental United States, Alaska and Hawaii. And what's the name for those states?
Yeah, that's the non-contiguous region. And let me try to get this off my screen here.
So I think we're in good shape for the regions. Remember, textiles are fabric.
Yep.
And let's move on now to Reconstruction.
So started right after the Civil War in 1865, and it ended in 1877 because of what?
Yeah, that date is real important. So that's the date where federal soldiers or troops are going to leave the South and go north, and they're not going to be enforcing those policies anymore.
Right.
Now, there's 2 main goals to Reconstruction. One of them was to reunite the North and South. What was that second goal?
The second one was to integrate African Americans into society. So remember, African Americans suffered the most under the slavery system. So therefore, they needed the most help right after the Civil War. And it was Reconstruction wanted to help them get into society and be equal citizens.
There's a lot of policies to help, and we're going to talk about those.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and look at
right after the Civil War.
Yeah, right after the Civil War. And we want to look at 3 people who were very important to Reconstruction. Their legacies, what they left behind, had a big impact on that. So the first man is Frederick Douglass. You already know in class when we talked about Mr. Douglass, a very, very powerful orator, powerful speaker, abolitionist, really a crusader for human rights, rights for all, voting, women's suffrage. So voting rights, an author, former slave. So just a very, very powerful character.
Yep. And there he is at a younger age. And we'll go to our next person we need to know about.
And that's Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, obviously the president during the Civil War, assassinated right near the end of the Civil War, soon after Lee had surrendered at Appomattox. So, and his vision for the country was to be reunited. He didn't want to punish the South. He wanted to preserve the Union and get back together.
Right. I think he said in one of his speeches, let him up easy. He wanted to preserve the Union. And again, not to punish the South. And he was big with reconciling.
Yep. That's an important word, reconcile, to be friends again or to get over your differences.
Exactly.
So this person here, this is Robert E. Lee, obviously a somewhat controversial figure, but he did have an impact on the Reconstruction period. How so?
He was an influential Southern general, the most famous Southern general. And when the surrender took place, I think we got a picture here of Appomattox. When the surrender took place, Robert E. Lee urged Southerners to, we're going to use that word again, reconcile, put the war behind them.
Stop fighting.
Right, move on. And he kind of like brought closure to the war.
Yeah, the South kind of looked at him as probably their main leader. So whatever he said.
Most influence, yes.
Whatever he said they were going to do. So him being willing to admit defeat,
right,
and saying stop fighting, then that was important in reuniting the country. So that's what we need to know about Robert E. Lee. All right, there he is in his older years. Next thing here, carpetbaggers. What's that?
Somebody that comes from the north, and when we think of carpet, where's that come from? They literally ripped up a remnant or a piece of the carpet. They turned it into a suitcase. They went south, and they took advantage. Some of them took advantage of Southerners looking for opportunity.
Yep.
And some Southerners resented that.
Yep. So they would come down sometimes and try to take advantage of the bad situation after the war, try to buy up land for cheap or attain political office in the South, that kind of thing. All right.
You can see pictures again, the carpet bag.
There's their carpet bag.
And we can skip over scalawags.
Yeah,
We're not
nothing
going
on
to
the
see
test
that.
about scalawags.
So let's talk about some positive things with Reconstruction. We talked about policies, and one of the biggest positives was the Freedmen's Bureau.
Yeah, Freedmen's Bureau was set up by the United States government to try to provide basic necessities to African Americans, to former slaves right after the war. So food, jobs,
Shelter.
education. So the Freedmen's Bureau was a good thing.
And if you look at some of the buildings, you'll often see a school or a church because they're a rallying place for communities as well.
This is an example of a school that was set up by the Freedmen's Bureau.
And we're going to talk a lot about amendments. We learned about 3 amendments, and they're Reconstruction amendments. And what documents that found in?
Yeah, the amendments are going to be found in the United States Constitution. Yeah.
So we the people, and you guys know the Constitution is a set of rules and guidelines for our government, but also tells you what rights you have.
Yep, exactly. So we're going to talk about the Reconstruction amendments, and those amendments were passed either near the end of the Civil War or during the Reconstruction years. So you need to know each of them, and you already should.
Yeah, and you had a way of a key word for each one. I think that's very important.
So we used an acronym in my class. We used S, C, and V. So 13, 14, 15. Slavery was ended by the 13th. Citizenship was granted by the 14th. And voting rights for African American men were enacted on the 15th Amendment. So those are your Reconstruction amendments. Yeah.
And then we have federal soldiers. Their role in Reconstruction right after the Civil War is to enforce Reconstruction, keep the peace, make sure those amendments were being followed. And where there were a presence of federal soldiers, Union troops would have you, Reconstruction policies were followed at first.
Yeah. Now we're going to get to something bad here that happened in history. This is called black codes, and these were laws that were passed mostly in the South to keep African Americans in a near state of slavery. So
to limit or restrict the rights of African Americans. So these are racist policies, obviously.
Yeah. And they had a lot to do with voting rights. So the 15th Amendment gave African American men the right to vote, but black codes were enacted, which made it nearly impossible for them to vote. So
and that's where you see that literacy test and the poll tax. And unfortunately, some of these lasted for a long, long period of time.
Yeah.
Black codes with law, different, more stronger sentences for crimes committed, and things were not equal.
Here's a picture probably from the 1900s here, I would think. And this kind of represents Jim Crow laws, but black codes were kind of the starting point for the Jim Crow laws.
So this is the segregation, the separate, all these racist policies that unfortunately are going to go on for a long time.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking a lot more about the Jim Crow era.
Yeah, and these are sharecroppers here. I think this picture indicates sharecroppers. Remember, that's that system of farming that kind of kept African Americans in a cycle of poverty, if you will.
Yeah. You really couldn't get ahead.
You couldn't make much money as a sharecropper because all your profit went back to the landowner.
And this was African Americans, poor whites. It was anybody that was, did not have a job. Yeah. And you can see some young folks out here. When you were working under these conditions, just think there's no time for school, recreation. So this was a hard, sad,
hard life.
Hard life.
Yeah.
You can see the shelters.
Yeah.
And you can see just a cycle of poverty.
All right. I think that's all we need to get to for right now. So this has been a crash course in Reconstruction. Now remember, parents, if you're watching this, we've covered all these things over the last 2.5 weeks. So nothing here was new. This is probably the 10th time it's been touched.
Yeah, so. And we've played a couple games. We've had the review sheet. We have the slide project. So all these things are geared towards making sure, students get 100% on this.
We want everybody to be successful. We'll be sending out an email to parents with this video attached to it. So this will prepare you and make sure you're good to go for the test on Tuesday. Yeah. Is that everything, Mr. Wagner?
I think that's great. Thank you.
All right. Let's see if I can turn us off here.